The royal family is facing a storm unlike anything before, not from foreign powers or scandalous headlines, but from inside their own walls. As King Charles fades from view, Camilla rises, William is sidelined, and Catherine quietly takes control. The public is divided. The press is censored, and Diana's legacy refuses to die. This isn't just a crisis. It's a reckoning. The monarchy is changing forever. The only question is, what comes next? The breaking point. The crisis that rocked the palace began quietly inside Sandringham House during an emergency meeting held in November 2025. Only a small circle of senior royals and 2 private legal advisors were summoned. No press, no extended staff, no traditional protocol officers. The call went out at 6:45 a.m., jarring even the most seasoned aides. One insider described the atmosphere as frozen panic, with courtiers avoiding eye contact and senior figures exchanging clipped words. This wasn't routine, it was rupture. At the center of the urgency were growing concerns over King Charles's health, though that was only part of the problem. Internal documents circulated just days earlier referenced institutional restructuring, a term never before used within palace operations. Those who had served since Queen Elizabeth II's era admitted they had never seen anything like it. The implications were massive: changing roles, lines of succession, and potentially the direction of the monarchy itself. Aides with over 15 years of experience were reportedly kept in the dark until the very morning of the meeting. Inside that room, tension flared. Prince William, known for keeping his composure, was said to be visibly angry as the conversation turned to power delegation. Proposals included giving Camilla more ceremonial duties and public-facing roles. William strongly objected. One source claimed he stood and said, "We're rewriting the rules without the heirs." The room reportedly went silent. This was not just a scheduling discussion, it was a crisis of direction. Charles's limited presence was opening the door to decisions that would sideline his own son. When the meeting ended nearly 3 hours later, there was no press briefing, no statement, just silence. Over the next 72 hours, internal communications ground to a halt. Appointments were quietly canceled. Media appearances were delayed. Palace insiders whispered about a complete fracture at the top. Something fundamental had changed. For the first time in decades, the royal family wasn't just facing external scrutiny, it was being shaken from within. That closed-door meeting at Sandringham didn't just expose a health concern, it exposed a monarchy at war with itself. With no public explanation and growing silence inside the palace, speculation mounted. But while the institution staggered, the power vacuum grew. In the absence of Charles's direct leadership, another figure began stepping forward, not loudly, but effectively. While the king looked inward, Camilla looked outward, and quietly, methodically, she began tightening her grip on the institution. The crown's fragile future. King Charles, now in his mid-70s, has always faced doubts about his readiness. But in the months following his coronation, those doubts deepened, not from critics, but from within. He's reportedly spent long stretches at Birk Hall, seen fewer public engagements, and missed key events that would normally define a monarch's early reign. Royal insiders have spoken of fatigue and periods of retreat, phrases that carry weight when describing a newly crowned king. The public doesn't know everything, but the palace knows enough to be worried. Since taking the throne in 2022, Charles's calendar has seen a gradual scaling back. In one 6-month period alone, he cancelled appearances at 3 major diplomatic events. Among them was a widely anticipated speech at the Commonwealth Leaders Forum, where his absence was covered quietly, without explanation. Advisors reportedly urged him to delegate more responsibilities, especially after doctors suggested reducing his public workload by as much as 40%. This led to a controversial internal decision. Camilla would begin filling in for him at select state functions. That decision did not sit well with everyone. During preparations for the 2023 diplomatic reception, Prince William was said to have objected strongly to Camilla's expanded ceremonial role. He reportedly challenged Charles directly, questioning the optics of sidelining the heir in favor of the Queen Consort. Though no official changes were made, the tension lingered. William's team began pulling back from certain events, offering vague explanations like personal time. But internally, the damage was done. Charles, weakened by health and surrounded by loyalists to Camilla, was no longer viewed as the sole authority. Behind closed doors, contingency talks have intensified. Advisors are reportedly exploring informal succession measures, ways to ensure stability if Charles can no longer manage a full schedule. William remains the next in line, but with no formal regency in place, Camilla's presence continues to grow. The palace is walking a tightrope between preserving tradition and protecting relevance. And with Charles retreating from center stage, it's unclear who's really leading the monarchy, the king in name or the queen in practice. With Charles increasingly absent and advisors unsure how to balance protocol with practicality, someone had to step forward. And Camilla didn't hesitate. Far from the shy consort she was once painted to be, she's now issuing decisions, reorganizing court affairs, and reshaping the image of the monarchy itself. What began as support has turned into governance. As the king steps back, the queen steps in. And behind palace doors, her reign, quiet, careful, and complete, has already begun. Camilla's shadow rule. Camilla was never meant to be the center of royal power. Yet by late 2025, she had become exactly that. While Charles rested and William retreated, Camilla stepped in, not with fanfare, but with authority. She began chairing internal meetings from Clarence House, even when Charles was in residence. Her sessions typically started at 8:30 p.m., lasting well into the evening, often attended only by her most trusted advisors. These meetings, once informal, soon became where key decisions were made. Her closest allies include Fiona Shelburne, one of the Queen's companions, and Penny Junor, a longtime supporter turned strategic advisor. By autumn 2025, these two had more say in ceremonial planning than the Lord Chamberlain, a break from royal tradition. It was during this period that palace communications subtly dropped the consort from Camilla's title in public-facing materials. No announcement was made, but suddenly, the Queen was everywhere, in press releases, official programs, and signage at royal events. It was a small shift with massive implications. The most striking example of Camilla's rising influence came in the planning of Commonwealth Day 2025. Traditionally, Prince William and Princess Catherine were deeply involved in organizing this event. But this time, their names were absent from all planning documents. A royal aide confirmed they were not invited to participate in this year's coordination meetings. When asked, Camilla reportedly dismissed concerns, stating simply, "We're updating the approach." That update excluded the future king and queen from one of the monarchy's most symbolic stages. Within the palace, staff began to talk of a new order. Long-serving courtiers who had worked under Queen Elizabeth II reported feeling sidelined. Some were reassigned, others chose early retirement. The tone was clear. This was Camilla's court now. Decisions once made through committee were now finalized in private rooms with a shrinking circle of influence. While Charles rested and William stayed silent, Camilla moved fast. And what she built wasn't just power, it was a monarchy in her image. The heir under siege. Prince William, once central to nearly every public and private royal engagement, began stepping back from his duties in mid-2025. At first, the change was subtle: missed photo calls, fewer statements, a delayed return from the Balmoral summer retreat. But over time, the pattern became clear. He wasn't being lazy. He was being locked out. According to palace insiders, meetings once held in Kensington Palace were quietly moved to Clarence House, with William excluded from planning sessions he traditionally led. By August 2025, members of William's personal team began to disappear from palace directories. Among them was Jamie Lowther Pinkerton, a trusted former private secretary who had remained a behind-the-scenes advisor. His removal, along with 2 other senior aides, came without warning. That same month, William's private lunch with senior military leadership at Horse Guards Parade was abruptly cancelled, no reason provided. Sources close to the heir reported that information was no longer flowing, and that William learned of several major ceremonial decisions only after they had already been approved. The sidelining continued. William was notably absent from 3 key royal events in September 2025, including the Battle of Britain commemoration and a diplomatic dinner at St. James's Palace. Publicly, the palace cited family focus. Privately, aides say William was furious. His objections to Camilla's expanded role had been ignored, and decisions about royal protocol were now being made without his input. One courtier described his position bluntly. "He's still the heir, but he's not being treated like one." Despite this, William has not lashed out. He's chosen restraint over rebellion, silence over spectacle. But those around him believe he's keeping score. Every door closed to him, every event skipped, every name removed from planning documents. It's all being noted. William may not be speaking publicly, but behind the scenes, he's building distance. The heir to the throne is no longer just being excluded. He's beginning to act like someone preparing to step away, or step around, the system entirely. As William is pushed into silence, another royal figure steps further into the spotlight. Not to grab power, but to protect her family's future. Princess Catherine, once seen as a supporting figure in royal life, is emerging as its moral compass. While William retreats, she advances, calmly, gracefully, and with strategic precision. In a family shaken by whispers and reshuffling, Catherine is doing more than smiling for cameras. She's safeguarding a legacy and preparing for a confrontation she never asked for, but seems increasingly ready to face. Catherine's silent strength. In the middle of the royal family's quiet storm, Princess Catherine has become a figure of resilience. As Prince William pulled back from public engagements, Catherine increased hers, appearing at hospitals, schools, and youth programs across Wales, London, and the Midlands. By September 2025, her solo engagements had surged by over 30% compared to the same time the previous year. Crowds swelled, media coverage sharpened, and unlike her predecessors, Catherine made no show of emotion, only purpose. Behind the scenes, she became William's closest advisor. She attended confidential briefings, pushed for inclusion in planning meetings, and kept in touch with key supporters of Princess Diana's former charities. In late August 2025, Catherine was spotted leaving a discreet meeting with Lady Sarah McCorquodale, Diana's sister at a private estate in Norfolk. Insiders confirmed they discussed preserving Diana's legacy through a new educational initiative. For Catherine, Diana is not just a symbol. She's a strategy, a living memory too powerful to erase. Catherine's messaging has also evolved. At a youth mental health event in Leeds, she said, "Kindness isn't old-fashioned. It's leadership." Her tone is calm, but her words cut through, often seen as indirect challenges to palace culture. During a solo visit to Birmingham, she wore Diana's 1985 sapphire earrings, prompting headlines like, "The Crown Within the Crown." She does not speak of internal tension. She doesn't need to. Her every step, speech, and image sends a message. The public trusts her, and she knows it. What makes Catherine's approach powerful is that she doesn't appear to be fighting. She simply continues working. But behind her poise is precision. Every ignored request, every excluded meeting. She's countered with presence, consistency, and impact. The monarchy may not be listening to her behind palace walls, but the people are. And in the long game of royalty, public faith often matters more than institutional favor. Catherine isn't making noise. She's making history and laying the foundation for what comes after the silence ends. As Catherine quietly rebuilds public trust in the monarchy, the people have begun to choose sides. The days of blind loyalty are over. Across the UK and abroad, crowds chant names, not titles. Portraits of Diana rise beside posters of William and Catherine. Outside the palaces, loyalty is no longer inherited. It's earned. And now, as the royal family becomes more divided, the public isn't watching passively. They're protesting, posting, petitioning, and loudly picking who they believe should represent the crown. The people speak. By late 2025, it wasn't just palace insiders feeling the split. The streets were speaking too. Demonstrators outside St. James's Palace and Kensington Gardens held signs reading, "Let William lead," and "Diana lives." In Manchester, chants of "Not My Queen" erupted during a royal motorcade. Hashtags like #StandWith, William and Diana Forever trended for 10 consecutive days, garnering millions of posts across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. What began as whispers of discontent had grown into a public outcry. Approval ratings reflected the shift. A YouGov poll conducted in November 2025 showed Charles and Camilla with just 39% support, while William and Catherine remained over 70%. Among voters aged 18 to 45, the divide was even sharper. Younger generations, raised in Diana's shadow, were clearly aligning with her son. Newspaper editorials began openly questioning the monarchy's direction. Even outlets traditionally loyal to the crown, like The Telegraph, published opinion pieces warning of an emotional civil war between monarch and heir. International observers noticed the rift. In Canada, multiple news outlets questioned Charles's relevance as head of state. In Australia, citizens protested during Princess Anne's visit, demanding constitutional reform. And in Jamaica, where calls for independence have grown, public speakers invoked Diana's legacy as the kind of leadership the monarchy lacks today. The royal family's challenges were no longer domestic. They were global. What happened inside Clarence House now echoed in parliaments across the Commonwealth. Fueling all of it was emotion, not just toward William and Catherine, but toward the memory of Diana. The more the palace tried to control the message, the more it slipped away. Online petitions calling for Diana's Memorial Day to be reinstated passed 800,000 signatures. TikTok videos comparing Diana and Camilla's public reception reached over 12 million views. This wasn't just a communications failure. It was a loss of moral authority, and in the eyes of many, the crown was no longer united. It was cracked wide open. The press war. The British monarchy has long relied on the press to shape its image, but in 2025, that relationship fractured. Once trusted royal correspondents like Roya Nikah, Richard Palmer, and Camilla Tomaini began noticing their access restricted. Invitations to briefings stopped. Royal events, once open to coverage, became tightly controlled. At the heart of the shift was Artemis Communications, a private firm reportedly aligned with Camilla's media team, which had taken quiet control of all press output from the palace. In August, a memo was leaked outlining new media compliance procedures, requiring all images, quotes, and event footage to pass through a 4-stage vetting process before public release. The guidelines didn't just standardize royal messaging, they suppressed it. Any footage that gave unintended attention to Princess Catherine or evoked comparisons to Princess Diana was reportedly flagged and delayed. Journalists who pushed back were shut out. One described it plainly. They're not just managing stories, they're erasing the ones they can't control. Social media, once a space for public connection, became another battleground. Fan pages dedicated to Diana and Catherine, some with over 300,000 followers, reported unexplained takedowns of their content. Popular pages like @DianaLegacy and @Windsor Truth vanished from platforms for community violations, even when their posts featured historical, publicly available imagery. Meanwhile, Camilla-themed content surged in visibility. New pro-royal accounts posted polished videos praising modern queenship, often flooding trending hashtags to drown out criticism. The mainstream press, too, began sounding the alarm. Reporters at BBC and Sky News hinted at increased pressure from palace officials to redirect narratives or pause critical analysis. A scheduled retrospective on Diana's public influence was pulled from broadcast without explanation. Viewers noticed. Critics spoke out. The palace refused comment. But the damage was done. In trying to control the image of the crown, the monarchy only deepened public suspicion. Truth wasn't being defended. It was being managed. And people could feel it. As the royal media machine tightened its grip, something unexpected happened. The more the palace tried to erase Diana, the more she reappeared. Her memory, once confined to anniversaries and documentaries, now lived everywhere, in social feeds, in protest signs, in the hearts of the next generation. While Camilla controlled headlines, Diana controlled hearts. And for a monarchy built on public perception, that kind of legacy isn't just inconvenient, it's unshakable. Diana's ghost. Princess Diana has been gone for over 25 years, yet her influence continues to haunt the palace. Her face reappears in protest posters, side-by-side comparisons, and video clips that go viral within hours. In a world dominated by media spin, Diana remains the one royal figure whose truth feels untouchable. That power, emotional, generational, and moral, now defines the biggest obstacle facing those trying to reframe the monarchy's past. In September 2025, a planned exhibition titled Royal Women in History at Windsor Castle was quietly revised to minimize Diana's presence. Her humanitarian work, once given an entire gallery, was condensed into a single wall display. Public outrage followed. Leaked internal documents revealed the original plans had included her Angola landmine campaign and work with AIDS patients. Their removal was approved by Camilla's team. The public didn't miss it. They responded with online campaigns and calls for boycotts. Prince William, sources confirmed, was furious. In response, he took quiet steps to preserve his mother's legacy independently. He began working with former staff from Diana's patronages to create an archive, one that would exist outside palace control. The project, known internally as the Diana Collection, gathered letters, videos, and unreleased images for digital preservation. It wasn't announced. It didn't need to be. Word spread, and the public rallied. Diana wasn't disappearing. She was being reborn through her son, through his wife, and through millions who still feel her loss. Meanwhile, supporters kept her name alive. TikTok videos of her hugging sick children, shaking hands in war zones, or confronting press crowds now attract millions of views. The more the palace ignores her, the more powerful she becomes. Diana's ghost doesn't scream. It doesn't sabotage. It simply waits, patient, graceful, and unforgettable. For every door Camilla opens, Diana's reflection lingers. And for every attempt to bury the past, the public brings her back. The palace may fear Diana's memory, but abroad, that memory still commands respect. In countries once bound to the crown, her legacy is more potent than titles or treaties. As royal presence fades across the globe, a new challenge emerges. What does the monarchy represent beyond Britain? For nations once loyal, the answer is no longer clear. The queen they remember is gone. The queen they see now doesn't speak for them. And the cracks are starting to spread across oceans. The Commonwealth cracks! Across the Commonwealth, the monarchy's symbolic power is under siege. In Canada, news outlets questioned the relevance of King Charles III after public events drew record-low attendance. Editorials in the Globe and Mail openly debated severing constitutional ties. In Australia, student-led protests broke out during Princess Anne's visit, calling for an elected head of state. And in Jamaica, politicians revived stalled talks about independence, citing the monarchy's inability to reflect modern values. For many nations, it's not about politics, it's about relevance. The younger generation doesn't remember the mystique of Queen Elizabeth II. They remember Princess Diana. And now they see William and Catherine as the only link to that emotional legacy. Charles and Camilla, in contrast, appear distant, rigid, and out of step. A poll in New Zealand found 68% of respondents aged 18 to 35 favored removing the monarchy entirely. The monarchy may remain on paper, but its emotional currency is collapsing. The damage isn't just symbolic, it's diplomatic. During a Commonwealth Economic Summit in London, 3 heads of state reportedly skipped the traditional royal dinner, citing scheduling conflicts. But insiders say it was a silent protest. At the same time, requests for William to attend upcoming international events rose sharply. The message was clear. Some leaders still respect the institution, but only if it's represented by the right people. The Crown's authority isn't just being challenged, it's being reassigned. The palace has offered no formal comment, but silence speaks volumes. Behind palace walls, advisors know they're losing the global stage, not through scandal, but through irrelevance. Once the royal family stood for continuity and duty. Now it's a reminder of unfinished business, unresolved grief, and a fading empire. And while tradition may endure in gold and ceremony, loyalty, especially global loyalty, doesn't bow forever. The world is pulling back. The institution is pulling inward. But inside Kensington Palace, something else is forming. Not a revolt, but a reset. William and Catherine aren't begging for power. They're preparing for something beyond it. They're not challenging the monarchy. They're planning how to survive it. And what comes next is not a battle, but a blueprint for a future that may no longer need permission. The Quiet Rebellion. Inside Kensington Palace, strategy has replaced ceremony. Prince William and Princess Catherine are no longer playing their expected roles. They're redrawing them. Away from the spotlight, they've built a small circle of trusted advisors focused on one goal: protecting their family and their future. Meetings with legal consultants, charity partners, and communications experts are now routine. It's not rebellion. It's self-preservation, wrapped in diplomacy, driven by legacy. Catherine, ever composed, has begun assembling a long-term platform rooted in the values she and William share with Princess Diana: empathy, service, and authenticity. Together, they've begun aligning their causes under one umbrella, not tied to palace funding or political structure. Aides say the project has been in motion for over a year, slowly taking shape. Its mission is simple: to do the work the monarchy claims to support, but without the restrictions of palace protocol. William's approach is less visible but equally deliberate. He's scaled back participation in projects that exclude his input. He's pushed back against initiatives that conflict with his values. And where he once deferred to palace tradition, he now defers to personal conviction. He may still be the heir, but he's behaving like a man prepared to lead on his own terms, even if that means outside the crown's control. This isn't the kind of rebellion that comes with headlines. It's quiet, strategic, patient. But make no mistake, it's real. William and Catherine are not waiting to inherit an institution they no longer recognize. They are building something of their own. And when the time comes, it won't be a takeover. It will be a transition, already in motion, already supported, and already trusted by millions who've seen enough to know where their loyalty truly lies.